day, everybody. It is Calxiyn here, and if you guys enjoyed this video, you guys should subscribe for more RWBY videos. Check out my Patreon if you guys want to help support the channel directly, and you guys should join my Discord server or just follow me on Twitter so you guys can engage with me and interact with me and stuff like that. So, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe that I'm saying this. Here in front of you guys, we are going to be discussing the best RWBY comic. And I know, like, after the last ones I did, you guys may be surprised that I'm saying that, because I was a little bit harsh with some of my, like, what the fuck is happening here? But this is the best one. Like, very high quality art. The writing quality of this one is, like, superb. Like, this is the pinnacle of what I wish all of the comics would be. And I think that the storyline in here is so important, and I'm not going to beat the dead horse of, this should have been in the show, because the whole point of the comic is that they're putting stuff in that they, like, regret not putting in the show, or they didn't have time to put in the show. And this is just so valuable for Blake's character arc that it makes me wish it was in the show, but you guys will understand what I mean. Like, this is one of the best comic issues that I think that they have done. And so yeah, that is basically, I cannot believe that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I cannot believe that this comic was so good. And for the past couple days, I've been procrastinating because, you know, the last comic analysis I did kind of left I don't want to say a bad taste in my mouth, but I was sort of being like, I will do anything so I don't have to do this. So I was pleasantly surprised reading this one. I genuinely think this one is the best issue that I've read so far. I wish all the comics were like this. It's just, I really think that it's good. There is something good going on here. And so, you know, we have this Grimm that is sort of like this freakish rhino Cerberus type thing. Like, it has 3 heads, but it also has, like, a rhino horn. And then you have this lady who is pretty smoky. That is not why I am giving this comic such a good review. And I know, like, she's an older lady. Like, you can see, like, when they zoom in on her in other chapters that, like, she has, like, the Raven and Callie treatment where it's like, oh, they look young, so let's just add some wrinkles on them and that'll be fine. But, like, her hair and the braid that she has, she's just such a well-designed character in my eyes, even though she's only in this sort of chapter. And obviously, I think that there is sort of a Yang symbolism going on here, so I'll talk about that. But I like this, like Sun Wukong and Blake Belladonna on patrol, right? And so they're basically here to help, like, you know, escort them to Menagerie and stuff like that. And I don't know what the style of Menagerie is supposed to be exactly, but this is very cowboy vibes to me. Like, they have a bull and all that, like Wild Wild West. I guess Menagerie is kind of Wild Wild West when you think about it, because I think the Menagerie outside of the main city is, like, surrounded by, like, wasteland and desert or something. I don't remember exactly, but yeah, something like that. Like a white fang mask, yeah. So they're talking about the Grimm, and obviously the Grimm are based, like, the Grimm are based on the White Fang. Oh god. The White Fang are based on the Grimm. Thank you, guys. Anyway, and so they are basically talking about, like, oh yeah, we hate the White Fang, so when you see Grimm going down, that makes us happy. Like, the kids are saying that. And so Adam Tar has killed our Uncle Jet in a big raid on a dust mine. And so this is where stuff starts heating up. Can we just look at her braid? Can we just look at her hair? Like, oh man, I don't know. I really like her character design, guys. But yeah, so this brings up the conflict for this whole sort of chapter, which is that Blake feels responsible because Adam definitely murdered this guy. So yeah, or at least you think so, right? And so we'll talk about that. There's a little twisty twist at the end of this comic, and so yeah, while reading this, I was like, fuck. So I really like the character development between Sun and Blake here, I guess. I wouldn't call it character, I mean, yeah, I guess so, like this moment, I guess we'll say, right? But this really develops Sun a lot more than he was in the show. Does that make sense? Like, this gives some depth to Sun's character, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so she basically explains, right, like Adam may have killed that person, and, you know, Sun has this sort of attitude, like, hey, Blake, like, if you want to bail, you can bail, and I really like that this is the first instance of Blake standing up and not running away again, because I talked about this, I don't know when this video was coming out, but just for reference, if you guys are watching this in the future, a couple weeks ago maybe, I released this Bumblebee video. I have no idea how well received it was, if it was well received, if I've deleted myself off the internet, you know, whatever. Just because, like, I haven't released it yet, and so it will be released by this point. But in that video, I sort of talked about how, you know, a comparison between Raven and Blake. Like, Raven continuously runs, while Blake, in the end, finally faces her fear and refuses to run anymore. And so if this was in the show, this could be a stepping stone showing that Blake's character has developed from somebody running away to somebody who is standing her ground and facing her fear, and that's really good for Blake's character, and that's good for the comparison between her and Raven, which obviously connects to Yang and her feelings and stuff like that. So that is basically like a point that I made in the Bumblebee video, and this is basically a stepping stone on the way to take the big stand against Adam, is that we already see this change in Blake where she is not running. Again, like, if she finds out, she has the right to find out, you know, and I really like that. And I feel like Sun is like, he says in one of the panels I didn't take a screenshot of, because I do want you guys to read the comic. Obviously, I'm just taking the ones that I need for my commentary. You guys should go support the comic and all that stuff. But he's basically like, Blake, can't you just do this for me? And Blake's like, no. And so that reminded me a lot of, you know, a She-Ra sort of thing, and Catra, thing, because I guess spoilers for She-Ra. You guys probably didn't expect spoilers for She-Ra, like light spoilers, but that's something that Catra says, like, can't you just do this one thing for me? And to Blake, Sun says not yet, but to Yang, Blake says yes. You know? So I think that that's sort of interesting, like, to Yang in the show proper, to some extent. And so, you know, she sort of goes like, wait until Menagerie, wait until the White Fang are defeated. Like, Blake is sort of going through what, like, Sun means, wait until we're both in a nursing home. You know, like, she is tired of sort of waiting and hiding in that way. And I like that we see all these shots with the mom, and her back is sort of turned in a lot of them. Like, I feel like that's good. I don't want to say symbolism, but you guys will probably understand what I mean. And so, yeah. But please not now. And so I really sort of like that. The ones that got away, the ones who came back, and the ones who can never come home again, you hope to forgive yourself. You can seek to be forgiven by your loved ones, but the most crucial step in this journey is still the most obvious and the most difficult one. So I really like that, right? Because she's saying to Sun, like, no, I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to, you know, hide what I did. I need to own up to my mistakes, right? And I feel like that's really, really good for Blake's character. Like, I feel like this is such a pivotal character moment for her that, again, I wish that this could have been something in the show. Again, I understand why it's not. I'm not hating that it's not, but I'm saying I wish. I think it's fine to have wishes. And, you know, like, I have those wishes for a reason. It's because this is very good for Blake's character. I hope that one day, not anytime soon, but one day they will do, like, a RWBY remake. You know, sort of like, yeah, I don't want to compare it to, like, a Disney remake, because we know how, like, we know how those have gone, but, like, at risk of sounding harsh, RWBY is like the first Percy Jackson movies, and now we're getting a Disney Plus Percy Jackson TV show. You understand what I mean? Obviously, RWBY is not that bad, but that's how I see RWBY. Like, RWBY is a rough draft. I hope one day, because this will hopefully, you know, be existing for a while, like, hopefully, like, this IP will be in somebody's hands for a long time, you know? Like, they could go back and, like, do, like, a full, like, uncut, you know, like, I don't know, like 30-minute episode, like, RWBY, and just, like, this is, like, the RWBY definitive version. It's like, you know, there's Kingdom Hearts 3, and there's Kingdom Hearts 3 Remind. Like, we need the RWBY Remind of RWBY. You know what I'm saying? And so, you know, yeah, she already knew that was the whole thing, and that's why I like the symbolism, because she had her back turned to Blake the entire time, and now she's turning over to look at her in the scene where it's exposed. I think that that composition is really, really nice there, if that makes sense. And so she knew, and so now you can see, like, I guess, like, her face more, if that makes sense. And so, again, they've given her the, oh, she looked young in that panel, but now they've given her some wrinkles to make her seem old and all that stuff. I just love her hair. I cannot get over this. And so, you know, I feel like that this is a really nice scene, because she's like, hey, you know, I could have poisoned you, I could have killed you, but you still came, and you stayed here, right? And Blake is like, hey, listen, you have a right to your revenge, and she's just still going, drag you outside and tell all my people that here stands my brother's Jet's murderer, question mark, and all that stuff. And, you know, I feel like that, obviously, this lady's just talking, because she's getting to her point, right? And so, I really like this. I would ask what you required of me to believe how completely and utterly I regret the pain he was caused and the loss. So I feel like that is a very, like Blake is ready to sacrifice for her mistakes here, and I feel like that is really, really good. And, you know, this lady is just like, and what if I asked you to die? And Blake is like, well, then I wouldn't believe that you loved him. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, Blake, what the hell? And so, you know, this lady's just like, what the fuck? Like, how dare you talk to me like that? But Blake's point is like, you know, more suffering, more death, like, more pain, like, that's not the way to remember somebody. And I think that that's a very interesting point and a very interesting line, like, you know, like, that's a terrible way to remember him. Like, oh yeah, like, my brother Jet was atoned because I murdered, like, the girl that didn't kill him, but was there when Adam did kill him. Like, if anything, this lady's beef is with Adam, but again, we get to the twist of this chapter. And so I really like this. You should have been more afraid to come here, and she says that she knows, but she's not afraid, and that's the whole point. I feel like that's what this lady is getting at with all of her sort of sentences, like, what if I poisoned you? What if I asked you to die? You should have been afraid, right? But she's like, but you're not afraid, and that's important. Like, I feel like that's sort of what the chapter means. You know what I mean? And so then we get to the secret is that he didn't die because of Adam. He was okay. Like, he got shot in the shoulder, but he was fine. You know, he came home, healed, drank, snarled at the children, swore about the White Fang, swore about the humans who had used him and abandoned him. He was still a Faunus, you know. The SDC hired him as a guard, as living proof that they didn't think that we were all vermin, all while using our labor in the mines, right? I was gonna say all while we were using our labor in the mines, but I guess that, you know, we can cut down that sentence. Anyway, and so he basically fell off a bridge, right? And so here's the thing, right? We've talked about RWBY and Faunus racism, right? We've dragged RWBY about Faunus racism, but this is a nice, more nuanced sort of take on Faunus racism. You know what I mean? Because it's been a lot of, well, like, Faunus good, human bad, right? To some extent. Obviously, you have White Fang bad, the rest of the Faunus good. You know what I mean? But we haven't really gotten into the meat of it. And this shows that there are other Faunus who are complicit in the suffering of other Faunus. You know what I mean? Is that he was a guard, and he was going against his own people. You know what I mean? Like, the Faunus who are laboring and all of that stuff. So he sort of went against, you know what I mean? And so I feel like that's a very nuanced take, because it's not just humans are the root of the problem, because a human person hired him to be a guard for that purpose, right? But he sort of used his position, you know what I mean? Like, he was happy to sort of rise up in that way. You know, obviously he's not happy now because he's drunk and he got shot, but he was happy to accept that position if it meant that he gets to sort of rise, like, above, but that means that he is complicit in the suffering of his people as well, because he's the one sort of, you know, because, like, here's the thing about the White Fang, is that the White Fang, I do not think, canonly, killed any Faunus during these raids. They killed all the guards, and then they set the Faunus free, especially in the past couple of chapters, right? And so even though the White Fang are bad for clear reasons, for Adam-related genocide reasons, right? We know what Adam wants to do. It's that he, you know, they were trying to free people during this time. I think this was before Adam was like, hey, it's time for us to, you know, like, wipe out the human race and make them our slaves. Like, that was Adam's attitude, right? That's not good. But, you know, back then, he still killed people, which is what Blake is, you know, going against, right? Is still that he murdered people and murdered these guards. But the White Fang were freeing people back then, and he, like, opposed, you know what I mean? Like, this guard guy, Jet, or whoever, like, he opposed the freedom of his people, and he protected the company that subjugated them. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand what I mean? That's very different from anything else that we've really gotten in RWBY. I feel like that this gives a lot of depth to the issue, you know what I mean? Because there are people that are complicit in other people's suffering, as long as they rise up, and, you know, it's a selfish thing, like, hey, as long as I'm okay, I don't care about the rest of you down below, right? And so, you know, I feel like that's sort of the point here, is that, you know, he was snarling and swearing about Adam Taurus that night, right? Like, it was his, like, this guy made some bad choices, right? I think that is sort of what she's getting at, right? And so he said, it was Adam Taurus who killed him, but it wasn't Adam Taurus alone. We begged Jet not to go and work for the very people exploiting us and abusing us, begged him not to do this for money, but we never know how stories end until after we leave them. I don't know what would have changed. You left our story and then you came back. And so that's important, right? Is that they were like, Jet, please don't do this. And he was like, fuck you, I want the money, right? And so that's the whole point, and I don't think that racism in RWBY has been this, like, ooh, you know what I mean? Because this is, like, a point, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is a very different take on things than what we have seen in the show proper. Does that make sense? And that's why I really, really like this comic, because it focuses on two things, like Blake being able to sort of stand up instead of, like, living in fear and all of that stuff, and her sort of accepting the consequences, whatever those consequences could have been for her actions. And then on the other side, this comic does a really good job of fleshing out the racism issue in Remnant that the show has not done. So yeah, I think that all of those things are nice. And so you see Blake doing the anime thing. I don't know, I mean, it's not just an anime thing. They do this in Japan, right? Like, this is like the on your knees, like, super serious bow, you know what I'm saying? And so, you didn't know who we were at first. You played with the children and saved us from Grimm. Not because you did it because you wanted our forgiveness, just because. I added those words because I think that's important, is that Blake wasn't like, ooh, you know, like, I know those people, I'm gonna sneak in and play with her kids and take care of the Grimm and then everything's even. Like, she was doing that because she was a good person. And when you learned, you didn't run. You stayed, you came to me and confessed, offered me the labor of your life in payment for all my brother could have done. Like, that is such a good line, and this is such a good scene, right? And so my brother was not a good person. He was responsible for the suffering of the workers he guarded, our own people. But his death put an end to any hope of change, of rehabilitation. That's the evil of death, that no more good can come. He may have been a good person one day, and then we get this. And so I think that's nice. Like, he could have been a good person one day, but you turned into a good person now. Does that make sense? Like, I really like that. And so she said that, you know, she gives her forgiveness, and then you see sort of the people in line that I feel like forgive her first. Gira and Callie forgive her, RWBY, Weiss, obviously, and then Yang is going to be the hardest to sort of, you know, convinced, if that makes sense, right? And I feel like that they made this lady look a little like Yang for that specific purpose. Obviously, like, she's a Faunus, right? And so that there's some differences, but, like, the hair and the length of it and all that sort of stuff, it does remind you a lot of Yang. And so I feel like this comparison is made, and I feel like that this comic just had really good themes, really good comic, lots of themes about forgiveness, and again, like, all of the stuff with Blake's character arc. I just feel like this one was so good. Like, it was so good, man. And, like, the art was consistent. I don't think I saw something where I was like, oh, why does Sun look like Oobleck or whatever, right? And so, yeah, I don't know. Like, this was just such a good comic, right? And I don't know how in advance they made these. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like with the later ones, could it be possible that there is improvement because of feedback from the community? That is basically what I'm saying, is that, like, say with the first 5 or 6, like, I don't know how up ahead they started working. Does that make sense? Like, for example, I have Full Metal Alchemist videos that are recorded all the way until August, and now obviously those are reactions, so it's different, but say those were some type of criticism videos, people wouldn't be able to tell me something is correct, and then for 6 videos in July, they're all like that. Does that make sense? And so I wonder with the comics how far ahead they were working, because if they planned out the first 6, sort of, you know, started working on them, kept putting them out after they were already sort of done, does that make sense? Like, they wouldn't be able to realize, like, hey, the community is giving us this feedback until the later ones. You know what I mean? Because I think that some of them have definitely, like, responded well, but this is, like, the best one that takes what everyone was saying and, like, applies it, and I hope that it's not a fluke. So you guys understand what I mean? I sort of wonder about that, but yeah, this was a really good one. I'm super surprised. I can't wait to read the other ones, and I will see you guys later. Bye.